right. Welcome to, I think this is like the 5th episode of Barely Shipping. So still just a young pup in podcast days. But today we're going to talk about what it actually takes to make B2B content convert, not by being louder or more clever or even more engaging, but by being clear enough that the reader gets their answer and can act on it. Obviously, louder and clever and all those things are good, but we're going to dive more into that. I'm sitting down today with Kayte, not Kate, Kayte Yerga Grady, content director at BlueConic, and one of the sharpest voices that I've found at the intersection of brand voice, conversion, and building content systems that actually run. Most impressively, at least to me, and I'll have some questions on this, is Kayte kept a 96% repeat business as a freelancer rate and has extensive experience in both B2C and B2B marketing, giving her a nuanced take on what it means to succeed in both. She is also an ADHD realist who thinks systems beat willpower, which is a lot of what the show is about. And as someone who can empathize with having ADD and trying to live in the world of marketing, I'm not even sure if we're going to talk about anything planned today, but we're going to try a bit. Kayte, tell me what I got wrong. What did I miss in the introduction?
None of it. I loved it.
Oh, there's got to be something.
Everything was perfect. Nope, I loved it. Every last word. Fantastic intros. So thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, I want to dive first into what I think is really cool, that you kept a 96% repeat business rate as a freelancer. That really jumped out at me, just because even more than any of your writing awards or the conversions that you've had in the past, I just think that's really cool that when people work with you, they want to keep working with you. What were you doing that made clients want to not leave? And did that skill survive to the move in-house, or did you have to kind of unlearn what you were doing to make clients so happy?
Okay, so I think there were two things, right? And so first, I care very deeply about the quality of my work. And so anytime I shipped anything, I wanted to make sure that it was like ready to be shipped, right? If final, final. I tried to make sure that it was as close to done and as close to publishing as possible. And that meant, doing my due diligence and ensuring that I met the brief and I met the word count and did everything that they were asking me to do. And second, I really, really focused and was obsessive about deadlines, which is so funny because if my family decides to listen to this, I am late for everything, always and forever until the day I die. I am on time with absolutely nothing, do everything last minute. But when it came to my work and when it came to be a freelancer, the deadline thing, you wanted it on Friday, you had it on Thursday, and you had it as done as it could be. And so I think that was super helpful. And I think people like that. I think when I work with freelancers now, like you have somebody who ships something that you're like, oh, great, perfect. It's done, it's good, and it's on time. Like what more can you ask for, right? I didn't have to unlearn that in-house, but I did have to learn that reliability looks different. So when you're a freelancer, that one piece of content in front of you, like that's the unicorn, like that's the focus, that's the priority. In a director level position in-house, my job isn't to optimize like one thing to death. It's to optimize an entire portfolio of content across channels, across mediums. And so the idea of, I have this white paper, I said I was going to get it shipped by Friday. I might not be able to do that because it's not the most responsible choice. Sometimes the most responsible choice is like jumping into a product launch or jumping in to support sales, jumping in to support demand gen. So that level of leadership asks you to kind of zoom out and you're constantly making trade-offs. And one of those trade-offs ended up being I had to stop freelancing. Funny enough that you should ask this because I learned very quickly that I can't be excellent everywhere. And if I want to be excellent in-house, I cannot continue to freelance alongside my full-time job because I want to build something where I'm at. And so ironically, the lesson that, I learned as a freelancer and that I am working on in-house is like you keep your commitments, but those commitments just look different now.
I love that. It's like aggressive prioritization in-house.
Yeah, ruthless.
You have to flow with, right? Yeah. I have to ask you this because I'm the same way. My family and my wife roll their eyes at how not necessarily late I could be very punctual, but I am so disorganized in my personal life, and they are shocked when I do, like they see me work from home or something, how crazy organized I am for clients. Why do you think that is?
The dopamine, like because there's you get the little sprinkle of like that adrenaline and that dopamine. You're like, if the one thing fails, the rest of it falls apart, and like that's the money, like that's the job, like that's the supportive income, right? And so like to me, if I shove one thing in the back of the fridge, right? If I'm shoving my leftovers in the back and I forget about them for a month and a half because I can't see them, so they don't exist. that there's no consequence to that, right? The consequence to not being organized at work and being on time, much more significant than it is with leftovers in the back of the fridge or the keys that are somehow under a couch cushion.
I love it. So I got to tell my family, just give me more dopamine for being more organized in my life. Pay me more to show up.
Like, what else? Can I get like a shiny gold star?
Yeah.
Something that'd be
A star chart. I could get into that. That'd be good. Okay. I digress.
One.
So we talked about, now you have, I loved how you said you have one piece of content when you're working with a client. That's the unicorn. That's what you're working on. And now you are juggling a lot more in-house. And so you're protecting a single brand voice across, let's say 150 plus pieces of content or however many hundreds of content. And what sounds like a bunch of different teams. Operationally, what does protecting the voice actually mean on like a Tuesday afternoon? Because I've heard a lot of people say we need to add that human touch, especially with AI, but they can't concretely tell me what that looks like, adding the human touch. How do you keep things from sounding AI generated across all of those pieces of content and in the different voices they need to be in?
You know, it's so funny. I think protecting the brand voice just gets this abstract, like POV, right? We talk about it in a really abstract way, but it comes down to fundamentals. And so the first thing is guardrails, whether it's myself, whether it's AI, whether it's another person, whether it's, demand gen creating ads, it doesn't matter. We have guardrails in place. And so words we naturally use, things that we avoid, how we talk about the tech, how much depth we go into for the tech, is this our tone? Is this the structure we typically go by? And when you have those like foundational guardrails in place, that makes it a lot easier. And AI is certainly an imperfect tool. Like there's no way around that. But when you have that foundation built, you have something to build on and continue to change over time. Another thing I really like, I use dictation features a ton. And so I think when we're speaking like this, it is vastly different than when I'm typing a piece of content. My typing and my writing, not in Slack, God no. But my typing and my writing is going to be a lot more buttoned up. It's going to be a lot more formal. I'm going to use bigger words. I'm going to use commas and punctuation. And it sounds stiff. Whereas when you're dictating, you're having a conversation, you're just being who you are and speaking how you speak. And I think that using that to help train your AI or work with other people or build your brand voice and guardrails is super helpful. And finally, I would say good judgment. Like you have to have it. And I think that when I'm reviewing when I'm reviewing something, I'm reading it out loud and I'm asking, and I've done this from the time I started freelancing. I used to print what I wrote, and I would get a red pen, literally a red pen, and I'd sit and I would read my words out loud and like circle the things that didn't make sense and go back on a computer and make changes. This is probably dating myself quite a bit. But I think when you read out loud, you understand a lot more of what you're writing. So would somebody actually say this? Like, does it sound good or does it make sense? Because those are two different things.
I do, because you're a millennial, right?
Elder millennial.
Oh, stop. You're not an elder millennial.
No, I really, no, but being honest, I don't, but that's not what no, I get classified into that bucket that's like tippy top.
Okay, well, I am a millennial as well, and so we share that. And I do feel bad. I feel like every other generation after just isn't going to have that kind of experience to have them give them razor sharp judgment because they've never printed things out and did the red pen. And you learn a lot through that really gross, painstaking practice. Are you thankful for having that skill, or do you just wish that you could just grow up and have chat do it for you?
No, because you don't, I mean, listen, I love AI as much as I'm on this podcast talking to you about AI, right? But no, I think without that skill, I wouldn't be able to use AI as well as I do now. And to make it sound human and protect that voice. I think without that skill, I would have a really, really hard time. It's funny. I have a 13-year-old son and we were talking about writing papers and he's like, oh, I'll just have it. And I was like, you will not have AI do it for you. You're going to have that fundamental skill of actually writing. And I don't care what it looks like. I don't care how bad it is, because that's where everything comes from. Right. And you have to be able to have good judgment to then make the tools work for you.
Joe, you finding that hard with kids? Because I have a 9-year-old. He doesn't have to write essays yet. And I know the teenage years are coming. Are you finding that hard to teach those skills, not just to your kids, but also to newer employees on how no, we have to do it. Sometimes we have to do it the boring way if we want this to be good. Or are you finding people are receptive?
I would say new employees actually come on because we work in SaaS, right? And so AI is very accepted across most of the companies we deal with. But if you even so much as going to FinServe. Like there are different rules, right? There's legality to it. There's protection. And so I think a lot of people, no matter how young they come into the industry we're in, that they're not used to using AI like we are. Like it's still a very new tool. So they come in with those fundamental foundational skills, and I'd be more likely to say they come in open to using AI versus me having to say, don't use it, do it the hard way. They come in like, teach me everything. Like, let's do it. They think it's a really cool tool. So I haven't had that experience, but with my son, I'm like, I'm going to look up math questions I'm like, stop. No, you have to, I'm not a math girl. You don't give me a problem. I don't want anything to do with it, but you have to learn how to do it so you can then, use a calculator later.
Yeah.
I think it's the same premise.
You have to learn to use a calculator before you use AI for your math. I do that.
Exactly. First you write it, then the calculator, then GPT will do it for you. There is my process.
All right. Well, okay. So I'm curious about you as, and I don't believe that you're an older millennial, but I'm going to take you at your word. You are a self-proclaimed AI content gen convert, and you do use Claude as a thought partner. I would love to know about your relationship with AI from the time that it came out just a few years ago. And if it's evolved, if you always felt comfortable with it, if you've seen the improvements and they won you over, what made you finally start using Claude as a thought partner, or have you always been comfortable with that?
So I always like to tell this story when people are like, oh, you love AI. You're so AI forward. When Kayte Grady first came out, my CMO at the time called up my director of content myself, and he was like, guys, look at this really cool tool. And he was like, write a story about Kayte and Erica. He like types on the screen, and GPT was new, so it was terrible, but it was, it created the story. And I was like, I don't ever want to see that again. I was like, robots are running the world. They're going to destroy my career. Like, this is the worst thing I've ever seen. I literally was like, no, I shut it down. I was like, I don't want to use that. I was like, it gave me the ultimate ick, right? Like it really did, which is so funny compared to where I am now, right? I hated it. And so I'm much further along in how I use it than I thought I would be, right? I'm obsessed now, I would say, with agentic marketing and the idea that these tools can, do these repetitive tasks, and I get to be creative and strategic and make all these decisions that I don't have to worry about publishing on Webflow, like copy and pasting things on Webflow. Claude can do that. Like, are you kidding me? That is amazing. And so I've built up my Claude skills. I have, a very, very complicated end with far too many agents that I sure could function better if I like broke it apart. It's like, you're going to build it. You might as well go big or go home, I suppose. And so, but I would say that's as far as I've gotten. And part of the reason for that, and I'll call myself on this, is I built engine, but what I need to do is like put the keys in and let it run, as opposed to putting the keys in every time myself. So it's just about scheduling and creating like the end loop of that workflow to make it run on its own. I already trust these tools. I already have them do things. But what I need them to do is run on their own. I haven't gotten that far. And part of that is just time. And AI is evolving so much too. Like, I need time to learn. I need time to see what's new. And so I think it's about making that a priority so I can do all these things autonomously, and rather than a thought partner and having conversations with Claude or therapy or whatever you're going to do that day. It's really about making the time to do those things and learning like what's the best way to do this.
Yeah, there was a quote going around a while back that you basically had to be unemployed to keep up with AI if you wanted to get employed with AI. And I'm like, yeah, that's pretty spot on because it's changing so fast.
It is so true. I just challenged my team to time block 10 minutes every few days to review AI news, because there's no way, if I go down a rabbit hole, I get so sucked in and get so far away from the one thing that I'm trying to learn. Where if I time block 10 minutes a day to read 3 newsletters, right? I have an AI newsletter inbox that I don't open as often as I should. If I time block 10 minutes to skim those, I can learn, 7 different things and have the information I need. It is, I don't know how people are so advanced with learning about it all, because I don't know when they do that.
I think just, at least for me, AI has replaced social media scrolling at work, and people are just doing it anyway and pretending like they're not, is what I think happened. All right, you talked about this a little bit about like you got the ick. I love that you got the ick from AI when it first came out.
I did.
But then also, like you brought up agentic marketing, and we are seeing some really cool things. And let's say that in 2027, 3 people can do what 15 people are doing now. As someone who leads content, and you see how your own work has changed over the past 18 months to 24 months, Does it still scare you? Does it excite you? Are you nervous? Are you more nervous about the next generation, like your kids? Like I come back to that all the time. I'm not sure what they're going to do. What makes you nervous? What excites you? And what what are the message for the children? No, what would be your advice to the next group of marketers coming in?
So this is a tricky one because I'm going to give you a safe answer, but it's not really meant to be safe. I think the answer is both. So I think, yes, it's frightening and yes, it's exciting. And I think it's a yes and, right? Um, I think a lot of the content work, we were talking about like printing out the paper and marking it up with a red pen. But in general, a lot of the content work that we've all done and grown up doing, that SEO, keyword driven, template for everything, that a lot of it was performative. I mean, we did it, right? And we did it for as a means to an end. But I like welcome the replacement of that. I welcome like, oh my God, I don't have to, even Grammarly, for an example, I've been using Grammarly for years. You mean I don't have to remember like the comma goes here and not like, thank God, like that takes away that heavy lift, right? But it kind of forces that uncomfortable question of if the machine can do it, right? The machine, we know the machine can do a lot. It might not be able to do it all well, but it can do it a lot. What is the human there for? And so I think that's the scary part. And I think that's the part for the younger generation of content marketers coming up. I think for, children, I think that's the uncomfortable part of it all. And then I think it's like, how do we move forward with that responsibly? And something that my husband and I always talk about, we have 3 boys. They're now growing up in a completely different age than we did. And it's how do you teach digital responsibility? So how do you teach them to be responsible with technology, with a phone, with AI, with access to everything at their fingertips that we simply didn't have, because they're going to continue having it. It's not about, withholding or taking away. It's about teaching them to use it responsibly and then also building up those foundations. So first the paper, then the calculator, then GPT, but you have to learn how to do the things so you get the end result that you're looking for.
Oh, I really like it. And it's a lot more optimistic than I've heard a lot of people say, which is just everything's done and we're all going the way of the robots. And I love that very much.
I can't, here's the thing. People need jobs to stimulate the economy.
Yeah.
And so like eventually, I think there will be a full circle moment where things kind of right themselves. I mean, we saw this in the Industrial Revolution as well. Things change, things are different. But I think the world has a way of righting itself. It just, who knows when that will be. We just have to go with it and teach the next generation how to do all these things responsibly, at least for now. And only time will tell.
Well, it's better than my take. I've been making they're 9 and 7, and I'm just having them learn how to really wash the appliances in our home. To practice washing robots, I'm pretty sure that's just what we're going to be doing for a while.
I disagree. No, I disagree. It will be a valuable skill, sure.
Yeah.
We need someone to wash robots, and I agree with that. But think about all the things that I always like AI can't do. And so we have welders and machinists and plumbers and electricians and, all of these trades that have been grasping for people for years. Like you have like the boomer generation retiring, and now what? Because our generation, we went to college, we got jobs in tech, we did all, and so to me, again, it's things kind of writing themselves in a different way that we don't often take into consideration because the trades need people desperately. And that's not something the robot, at least for the time being, can do.
It's funny you say that. My kids, because it's obviously summertime, which is just the most fun for parents of young kids to have home running around. We got them in a camp, and it's like a farm camp.
Yeah.
And they changed the tires on a quad. I am not, this is going to shock you, I'm not the most mechanically inclined person on the planet. Crazy, I know.
It's shocking.
His face when he was describing what they were doing, he was so excited and happy and like proud about having done this work that I was like, I don't think I've ever felt that way turning in a blog post where I was like I get my hands dirty on that. Like, I like it. It's fun. There is that dopamine. But he was like, he was dirty and just absolutely loved it. And I thought, okay, there's still going to be things that give people fulfillment. That's going to be really cool.
Yeah. And it's not just fulfillment, but it's also a means to an end for things that have to be done to keep the literal infrastructure of the world running. And so like, there's more to it. I think we work in this industry where AI is so accepted and so heavily talked about and leaned upon. The rest of the world doesn't necessarily have that same POV or same experience.
All right. I'm going to hit you with a question kind of from left field. There was like, I'm so sorry to put you on the spot, and I'll take it out if you don't want it. But it occurred to me yesterday. I was thinking CEOs before, let's say 2021, before any of this AI nonsense came out, Um, I've seen them take really good copy and in the final review, just kill it and change it and water it down and say, no, I like this without any consideration to like, this is what the audience likes. It's like, no, my taste is this. So we're going to put this on the homepage or put this on the landing page. Copywriters spend a lot of time doing it, get something done, a CEO kills it. And now I'm seeing a bunch of the same leadership take whatever ChatGPT gives them because it's prompted in the way that they're going to like it. And then they'll put it there. And both led to underperforming results. Why do you think it's so hard for some leaders to let the people do what they hired them to do without meddling, especially with stuff like writing or content where you can't measure it until it's out there. So you can never say this is right or wrong until it's been put into the world. And if you kill something before it's put in the world, you can always convince yourself that you were right. What do you think it's hard for some leaders to just trust their content team?
I don't think, you know what? I think like zooming out of this question is what I'm going to do here. And it's not for lack of not answering the question. Think about a book you like. Think about a style of writing you like, a style of music you like. Taste is personal. Taste is individual. Taste is unique. And frankly, when it comes to writing, as you know, I'm a copywriter by trade, right? I think I have the best taste in writing, but there are things that I may not take into consideration. If you have a CEO or a CMO or some C-suite who comes in and like, oh, I don't like that it's based in taste, not necessarily in wanting to undermine or, dog on the level of work and thought that went into it. I also think it's important for writers to remember that, like, if you feel strongly about something, and this goes for in your career in general, if you did the research, you know what's right and what's correct, you fight for it. You give them a reason. This is why that at the end of the day, your boss or your boss's boss is going to have the final say. And if their taste is what wins, their taste is what wins. Like that's the way it's going to be. But I think that you have to fight for what you think is right and give a good reason. Just the same way product has to give a good reason for why they're going to develop this next feature over the feature they talked about in October. And they found a new feature. They think it's going to be better. They run it by the CEO. The CEO says, well, that's not what we told our clients. That's not what we told our customers. Why are you going to do that? You have to fight for it. To me, it's the same premise.
I like that take. I think it's too forgiving to leaders, but I do like that take a lot. And especially, I've had a hard time sticking.
We're lucky to have good leaders. I think when it comes down to it, I've been lucky to have good leaders too. So I'm not gonna fight that too much, but I've been lucky that when someone wants to change my work, I can go to bat for myself. And most of the time it is not changed in a way that I wouldn't think is okay.
Oh, that's really cool. All right. That's great. Okay. I have been all over the place in this conversation. So thank you for your patience. One last question related to what I just said, where we've been talking about SaaS, the changes in SaaS, but then also at the intro, we have chatted briefly in the past about ADHD, and you describe yourself as an ADHD realist. Before anything else, what do you mean by that?
I think because for so long, especially as a young woman diagnosed in, I'm going to go with late 80s, early 90s, I don't quite remember. You kind of think you need to be someone different. And you kind of think like, oh, my brain doesn't work right. Oh, I don't function correctly. When I stopped expecting that to change, I became an ADHD realist. Like, I know what this is. I know my limitations. I know my strengths. I know where I need support. I know where I don't. I know where meds come in handy. I know when I don't need them or want them. And so when I stopped trying to do all these things to change like the reality of the situation, I think I just became more real. It wasn't about being more disciplined or more organized or better at remembering things. It was just about being better at just being myself and being kind of who I actually am.
Do you find specifically in SaaS, and it's specifically now where you can almost build anything in terms of like systems? Do you find I'll throw myself under the bus. One of the problems that I have, and then we'll get to the strengths of it in a second, but I was diagnosed late with ADD. And one thing I really liked about you, I was diagnosed right around the time I saw you posting on it in LinkedIn. And I really liked the fact that I never saw you complain or use it as an excuse. It was always just, this is how things are, like you said, and very realist about it. There are positives and negatives. I want to talk really quickly about a negative where I at least find for myself tempted to get into a bunch of different builds now that I can build anything. And I'm like, oh, I can make this and I can add this. And why don't I add this? And it gets me excited. and then I kind of lose the forest for the trees. Do you find the same with you, or are we on different brands of this thing?
Well, if you recall, my last answer about my NA10 was it has a bunch of different agents and I'm so complicated. Then I'm like, okay, I need to go back and then divide it up so it's more functional
That's
because
right.
it's just like after agent after agent. But with that being said, some of it comes down to time and like other things that have to be handled and other priorities that I just have to focus on. And like if one has to give, it's going to have to be the cool thing, temporarily. But I also have to really, really, really ask myself, am I going to be able to leverage this? If so, for what? And then if it's just because it's really freaking cool, like, is that a good enough reason for me to build it right now in this moment? When if I do this, then I'm working. If I do this, I'm not doing that. If I do this build, if I'm working on this workflow and I skip reviewing the ad copy this week, but then I have to do that at 5:30 as opposed to at 4:30 because I got sucked into this, that's staying away from my kids. And so I try to think about it from the lens of like, if I'm doing this, I'm not doing that. And if it's nothing more than cool, unless I can really, really learn something from it, it's going to teach me like a skill I can use in my company now, in my career. I say no to it because I know myself, much hence the NA done with far too many agents, all built on top of each other in this really, really long, like I get to get in too deep. So I just had to be really discerning.
That is, you have much more wisdom than I do in that way. I just get so excited. I'm like, oh, let's
It's
turn
cool.
left. Oh, let's add this to the street.
It's so cool. It is. It really is. And I can't, really good podcast answer, right? I can't say it's always that way. Like I cannot without a doubt say I always do that. It's just what I try to do.
Well, I do want to learn more about these agents, but I want to ask you one last question. I know we're coming up to time. And again, thank you. We're staying a bit late too. So thank you very much. My last question is on the same subject. We talked about, I do tend to get distracted, overly excited. People have, though, talked about ADD as kind of a superpower in ways. And I don't want to lead the witness. I've seen ways where it can be kind of an advantage. But do you find that you have certain advantages in this area because of this and you just accepted it? You're not trying to change it. Have you found the superpower in ADHD working in SaaS?
I have been able to put my mind to literally anything to move my career upwards. And I think that is something that gets overlooked a lot. People often think that ADHD is like that hyperactivity. And no, I can't sit still. The fact that I've been sitting still for 27 minutes now should shock you as well. But it's that level of hyper focus and that I want to do this. I want to succeed. People wouldn't expect me to succeed in this. And so I have no one to prove wrong. I'm just going to prove that I can.
Yeah.
And so I think that is an incredibly empowering thing. It's an empowering thing for women in tech. It's empowering for neurodivergent people of all types. And so to me, that's the unlock. And no, that's not to say my keys aren't in the fridge along with those leftovers from 2 weeks ago, but the hyper focus and that drive to do the thing, that the greatest lever I have in my career.
Oh, that's great. That's a great answer. Okay, I'm going to end this by just saying, seen a couple videos you've been making on LinkedIn. They seem to be a recent thing. You need to make more. You're just killing it. I know you hate it and you hate being on camera and I had to bully you for months to talk to me on camera. But you got to make it. Absolutely. All right. Kayte, thank you so much for chatting today. I really appreciate it. Where can people find you if they want to reach out? Don't bug Kayte with messages or anything, but if they want to like your content and follow you, where can they find you? LinkedIn?
LinkedIn's the best place. It's Kayte and last name is Grady.
All right. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Nathan. Talk to you soon. Bye.